as their hotel check-in staff rather than law enforcement. They're not able to actually enforce the law. They're just checking people through to be able to come in the country. That's not what they signed up for.
From the USA Radio News Phoenix Bureau, I'm Tim Berg.
USA.
How to perk up a bleak winter garden. That's coming up on This Land of Ours.
Living in Florida, we have so much to celebrate. Awesome weather, top-notch universities and sports teams, a rich blend of cultures, and so much more. From fresh market tomatoes to watermelons, from snap beans to tangerines, Florida farmers grow an abundance of safe and affordable products that are prized around the world. So look for the Fresh from Florida label when you shop. Wholesome, delicious, nutritious. Fresh from Florida. Fresh to you.
The 5th Annual Georgia Citrus Association Conference takes place on February 28th in Tifton. Hosted by the Georgia Citrus Association, the conference is the perfect place for growers to get the latest on crop insurance, food safety, regenerative farming, organic growing, nutrition, winter protection, and new citrus varieties. The Georgia Citrus Association is growing, and now is the time to become involved. Tickets are $50 if you pre-register and $60 at the door. Limited vendor space and sponsorships are available. Visit georgiacitrusassociation.org to register today.
Southeast AgNet is social. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, where you can be sure to find all of the agriculture news for the Southeast.
If you're wanting to bring more life to your garden during the cold months in winter, consider these key elements: focal points, color and structure, and fragrance. Focal points include sculptures, garden structures such as ponds or arbors, boulders, or containers. For a splash of winter color, consider going evergreen. A bare deciduous tree against a curtain of green brings structure and style to almost any planting. Fragrant plants in the winter can be a pleasant treat. Witch hazel has a sweet fragrance regardless of how cold the temperature is. And there are yellow and orange varieties available. Sweetbox infuses a pleasant vanilla scent to the air and produces blackberries that provide additional color and pizzazz. I'm Kathy Isom, Southeast AgNet.
When it really counts, depend on the source for the latest weather updates, keeping you ahead of the storm. 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Today will be partly sunny with a high of 76 to 80, then patchy clouds tonight. Mild night with a low of 59 to 64. Mostly sunny Thursday and Friday. High on Thursday 80 to 82. High on Friday 83 to 85. Look for a brief shower or two Saturday morning. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Holly Holdren.
You know what you want to do in retirement, but do you know how to get there? Tune in to Coasting into Retirement with Gary Marriage of Nature Coast Financial Advisors, Sunday mornings at 8 to get answers to your retirement planning questions. Plan today so you can do the things you've always dreamt about doing in retirement. Listen Sunday mornings at 8 to Coasting into Retirement with Gary Marriage of Nature Coast Financial Advisors.
Our firm offers insurance services.
This is Ocala Talks with Tom Schmidt, bringing stories that are important to our community in and around Ocala. Plus, of course, a splash of sports as well. Now, here's your host, Tom.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks. On a Wednesday, yesterday was the first day of February 1, kicked off Black History Month. We talked about Harriet Tubman in the last segment. But there's a bigger problem going on. More than a dozen black colleges and universities on Tuesday closed their campuses, canceled classes due to bomb threats. Homeland Security Chair Bernie Thompson said in a statement on Tuesday night he was briefed by the FBI on a plan to apprehend those responsible for the violent threats. This included coordinating with federal and state officials to ensure the safety of each institution affected is taken care of. The campuses that received the threats Tuesday: Howard University, Alcorn State University, Coppin State University, Edward Waters University, that's right there in Jacksonville, Fort Valley State University in Georgia, University of the District of Columbia, Morgan State, Kentucky State, Xavier University of Louisiana, Philander Smith College, the Arkansas Baptist College, Mississippi Valley State, that's where Jerry Rice went, and Jackson State, that's where Coach Primetime's at. And they're taking these threats. They have to take them seriously. Because it has to be taken seriously in case it's accurate. Now, all 12 schools were searched. No bombs were found on the campuses. So it was just really a terror tactic, a scare tactic. Val Demings, who is the representative to Congress from Florida, she's former police chief of Orange County, she wrote Tuesday that threats demand a response. As a former law enforcement officer, I'll keep working to make sure our institutions and law enforcement have the resources they need to keep all our students and communities safe. They have to respond to these threats. And I hope whoever did it, if they get caught, are prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. If this was the shoe was on the other foot, and it was done at Florida State, Florida, UCF, USF, Stetson, JU in Jacksonville, University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kentucky, University of Mississippi. If the shoe was on the other foot, they all got threatened with bomb threats. There'd be a huge uproar, as there should be. This should also cause a huge uproar. The fact that 12 institutions of higher learning, I don't care what the affiliation is. Call back, caller. Sorry, I missed your call. The fact that they have been threatened, regardless of what they're affiliated or who they're affiliated with. Whoever's doing this should be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. Good morning. You're on Ocala Talks. Hello, good morning. Caller, you're on a bad connection. Call us back. They're on a very bad connection. I mean, Edward Waters is right there in Jacksonville. That's close, folks. Fort Valley State's not very far into Georgia. This is not the 1960s. We're not bombing black churches and black universities. Stop. It's 2021, 2022. Good morning. You're on Ocala Talks.
Hey, Tom, I apologize. I was trying to get through, and a few things just all converged at once just a moment ago, and I apologize.
Are you as highly aggravated, Mark, as I am?
Well, I just think everything you've said so far, it just seems so well orchestrated and so well, and the reason I called was actually I was calling to talk about black carpenters at the turn of the century, considering I just retired from the Carpenters Union, and how there were all black halls throughout the Southeast. And actually they had to form their own halls because the United Brotherhood of Carpenters was not all that accepting of black membership, though at the national, but at the national level, the carpenters were accepting. But in the Southeast, there was still concern. And in other parts of the Midwest and the Northeast, there were issues. But and that goes back to the development of your state of Georgia, one of the original 13 colonies. Our American history runs very deep. And I've learned so much, Tom, from listening to the history and reading about the history of Georgia and how instrumental they are in the whole country's development. To include, by the way, and I'm not calling to provoke you, to include the militia slave patrols that formed into the militias, which was a state constitutional matter concerning Georgia.
Yep.
And if you were a ditch digger or a doctor, you had to belong to the state of Georgia to be able to respond at a beck's wish to hunt down escaped slaves. So that goes back to your
100% that happened.
About
100% that happened.
Harriet Tubman. And that blends, and you would know it better than I, Tom. I'm a Midwesterner where things are just kind of, everything's slower there in a certain way, even our football, by the way. But our basketball is very quick. You notice that? But
yes.
But the fugitive slave patrols and the Second Amendment also go hand in hand. And the Second Amendment was driven by Southern politicians at the national level for the United States. It wasn't about the invasion of France or the country of Turkey or somebody coming to get us. It was about what was happening here domestically, which I think in return, the Germans actually studied. The Germans studied us during the Civil War, not through the newspapers. They had people here watching us. And so there's always been some interesting connections. But I actually just wanted to call also, Tom, that the Nazis that marched yesterday in Orlando and then these bomb threats, I think that's all a coordinated thing. I don't mean to be Mr. Conspiratorial, but I think there's a connection. They're trying to agitate the base, as they would say, the Al-Qaeda, the base. That's what that means, right? So keep the people ginned up, which is a Southern plantation or Southern history term. And it works for some people and it doesn't work for educated folks like yourself. But I appreciate your constant honesty and your bravery. And I appreciate you being on the station and being knowledgeable,
Look,
Tom. I thank you.
I appreciate that, Mark. All I know is facts are facts. And we had an ugly history. We had a very ugly history from the beginning of the exploration of this country through the way the conquistadors dealt with the Native Americans, the way the white settlers dealt with the Native Americans, all the way through the Dutch selling Africans on, in the West Indies that they had gotten from warring tribes in Africa, and the Dutch brought them to the West Indies and sold them, and then they were brought to the United States. It's an ugly history. There's parts of our history that are ugly. But if we teach it accurately, then we don't have any of these debates about what we should teach, whether critical race theory should be taught, whether this should be taught, whether this should be excluded. Yeah. If you teach it properly, it's all in there. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I agree with you 100%. I didn't really call during the comments on your show, not from necessarily yourself, about critical race theory. But what little I've been able to determine, the critical race theory was kind of promulgated by some conservative news stations. And it actually is only a course that's offered in the advanced degree programs, usually associated with law schools, of which I can't get into any of those, nor did I try. But the point is, critical race theory is basically about the penal system, the jails of America, and how that also goes back to the slave days of plantations or slavery, and how it's not really escaped us in the long run totally. And then we can have people who don't understand what you're speaking about, Tom, and end up chasing a guy down in a pickup truck and having a prosecutor say, hey, I don't see anything wrong here. Just let those people walk. And by the way, that guy used to work for me. He was an investigator for the GBI or something. But,
of course, we're talking about the incident in Brunswick where three gentlemen were just convicted of murder for basically gunning down a jogger.
Right. I mean, what can you steal from a house? I'm a carpenter. I'm like, dude, what are you guys going to run down the street with a bunch of 2x4s? Carpenters don't make enough money to leave their saws on the job. No, they're not going to leave their power cords there.
There's no Milwaukees or DeWalt's left in an unguarded house.
No, and that's the good gear. You can leave the Chinese crap, and those are Chinese now too. But I mean, there's nothing to really steal from a job site. But it must have provoked those people. They felt threatened or scared, whatever. Maybe the guy had some psychological issues. He didn't deserve to be executed, and he's not. He's not executed. And his perpetrators have been found guilty, and thank goodness, because that judge was very fair. I just want to close with this, Tom, that the U.S. Capitol and the U.S. White House were, for the most part, pretty much built by slaves.
For the most part, the White House, except for the engineers that laid it out, was built by slaves. That's not arguable.
That's correct. That's a fact. And they got a lot of people's names. They're just they know who the descendants are. There's a bill before Congress of which I would support.
The problem, Mark, is that a lot of people stop at the atrocities that were rained down on the African American community. And they forget that the Chinese community was treated really poorly. They weren't slaves, but the indentured servitude of them was basic slavery. The Irish treated the same way. We have a long history of treating people who we think are lower than us and whoever we are, that think that we're low enough. We have a history of treating them poorly. The Italians at the turn of the century, from the 19th century to the 20th century, the way the Italians were treated led to a lot of what is now known as Cosa Nostra, because that's how they were able to make money, because they weren't allowed to do anything else.
Well, they had to survive, so they pulled together. And this is what the power of the many, when it consolidates, and I know this is a bit of a reach, but when a group is so powerful, they force people to do what they have to survive, and then we point the finger at them. See, we're telling you how bad these folks are. You can look at that with foreign policy as well.
Which is exactly why we need the Electoral College, because the power of many can sway the vote, and California and New York would elect presidents and representatives by themselves, all alone, every time. Hey, Mark, thanks for the call, buddy.
Yep. All right, Tom.
We'll take a break. We'll be back with more on Ocala Talks, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
Know what you want to do in retirement, but do you know how to get there? Join Gary and Don Crawford of Pinnacle Retirement Advisors for Retirement with Pinnacle, Saturday mornings at 9 to get answers to your retirement planning questions. Plan today so you can do the things you've always dreamt about doing in retirement. Don't miss Retirement with Pinnacle with Gary and Don Crawford, Saturday mornings at 9. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
The Appleton Museum of Art presents a musical performance by the world-famous Maharaja Flamenco Trio on Saturday, February 5th at 7 p.m. Presenting a sound that blends the flavors of Spain, Africa, the Caribbean, and more, the trio will play 2 sets, including music from their new album. Tickets are $25. More information and tickets available at appletonmuseum.org.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Buffett. Save the Manatee Club has helped to protect imperiled manatees and their aquatic habitat for decades, but there's still more work to be done. Threats from cold weather, red tides, pollution, and boat collisions continue to take their toll on the manatee. So let's work together to safeguard the manatees and the places they call home. Be the friend they need. Visit SaveTheManatee.org. Thank you.
Get it for less at the DIY Home Center outlet. Get top quality real wood cabinets the same or less than the big box stores are selling the cheap stuff. And that's not all. Drywall screws big box stores are $6.47 a pound. At DIY only $4.99. Plus DIY has the largest selection of mobile home parts and accessories anywhere. From carpet to doors, get the DIY supplies you need for less. The DIY Home Center outlet. We are your building material closeout store. 2191 Northwest 10th Street, just 2 miles east of I-75.
Dad's service to our country is something we're so proud of. He made a difference and set a great example. Now it's our turn to honor the sacrifices he made for our family and this country. As veteran specialists, Hires Baxley Funeral Service helps us celebrate Dad's life and can help you too. Hires Baxley is here for you during your time of need or when planning for the future. For more information, call 352-484-0891 or visit hiresbaxley.com/choice.
Each morning, we wake up thankful to live in a free nation with liberty and justice for all. But sometimes those liberties can be put in jeopardy, and you may have questions about what to do or who to call. Let Doc Blanchard of Blanchard, Miriam, Adele, and Kirkland help you find the answers. Attorneys at law since 1974 and located in downtown Ocala. If you have legal issues, don't go it alone. Call 352-732-7218. Blanchard, Miriam, Adele, and Kirkland, helping protect your liberties every day.
Welcome to Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. Gene and Debbie thank you for another successful year and to wish you and yours a year ahead full of faith, family, and friends. It's no secret that we have and will face some challenges this year. Now more than ever, we need to reach out to make our workplace a caring community. Wishing you peace, hope, and a brighter new year. Powell Gene, Gene @yahoo.com, 352-629-2440. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing, 352-629-2440. Gene is a proud United States veteran.
Good credits, bad credits. It's none of our business because we're not an auto dealer. We're not a bank. We're not your mother. We're OcalaForSale.com. Marion County's marketplace for cars, trucks, and SUVs. We've got thousands of sellers standing